Imagine a world transformed by the power of giving, where every act of kindness sparks another. These are the champions who dedicate their lives to change. Together, they are paying it forward. Champions of change. Paying it forward. Join us and be part of the movement. Here on the Achievement Channel.
Welcome to Champions of Change on the Achievement Channel, where we spotlight individuals making significant strides in societal transformation. Today, we are honored to have Crystal Chigbu, a distinguished social entrepreneur, author, certified grief recovery specialist, and the visionary founder of the IREDE Foundation. Through her work, Crystal has dedicated her life to empowering children living with limb loss, providing them with prosthetic limbs, and fostering inclusive communities across Nigeria. Her personal journey and unwavering commitment to advocacy serve as a beacon of hope and resilience. I'm Pamela Igbu, reaching you from the studios at the School of Eloquence, Lagos. Let's get started.
Champions of change. Paying it forward. Join us and be part of the movement.
Crystal, welcome to Champions of Change. It's really great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great. So today I'm really excited to talk about your foundation, the IREDE Foundation. And I know that you had a personal experience with limb loss. Could you tell us about that and what inspired you then to go on and start a foundation?
So when we gave birth to our first daughter, she had a congenital limb deformity.
Okay.
And we were told when she was 6 days old that we had to amputate that limb.
Wow.
And she's our first child, and so it was really not what we wanted to hear. So we started doing research, going from place to place, just trying to understand that we're making the right decision for her by amputating the limb. And so when she was 2 years and 3 months old, we actually decided to go ahead with the amputation of that limb. But of course, we had been doing all the research and just trying to understand and going from hospital to hospital, really making sure that we're making the right decision at the time. And so that led to the amputation of the leg. And after the leg was amputated, everyone kind of went back to their, lives, because now the leg is amputated. We were trying to get her an artificial leg, and we just really wanted to live our lives, like simply just stay. But eventually, I think on one of the days when I was working from home then, I was told that a woman wanted to see me. And this woman came looking for Crystal, and she was hoping she would see someone that is really big and huge.
Right.
Because her son was given birth to also with a congenital deformity bone in the hand. And she had stopped her life. And this boy was going to turn 3. She wasn't going to her store. The boy was interacting with nobody and was just at home. So she wanted to meet this woman whose child goes to school.
Right.
And that's how I met her, and we started talking. And she asked if she could be friends with our family, and I was like, why not? And that's how we helped with the process of putting her child in school. And then they started going to church. She started a shop back. Her husband was, back to life. And I would get to the office then and just tell my colleagues, this just happened. What do you think about me just blogging about my situation? And from blogging, I met another child in Enugu with exactly the same congenital deformity as my daughters, and they wanted me to talk to the parent because the woman was not going to make the decision of going ahead with the amputation. And that's how somehow I started blogging, and blogging led to starting the IREDE Foundation, basically.
Oh, wow. So how have things moved along since your daughter, she's 16 now? I find that in Nigeria, particularly, we're not still very comfortable with disability. And I can imagine has been stigmatization for some families. How have you found that in terms of when you're providing support for families, and what policy areas do you think that need to change so that people in this country can get the support that they need?
It's interesting that you talk about policies because in 2018, the Discrimination Against Persons with Disability Act was actually launched. And then in 2019, it was enacted and it became a law in Nigeria that persons with disabilities should not be discriminated against.
Right.
And it's interesting that we are not yet at a place of complete implementation of that law. So yes, there is a law. There are policies that support persons with disability. But I think culturally and religiously, as a people, disability is not something that we accept. Because somehow somebody has a disability and you are asking, you know, I mean, in my own situation, for instance, our families were very unaccepting of the fact that we gave birth to a child with disability because, hey, it's not in our family. We've never seen this before. And it wasn't coming from a place of anger or not wanting to accept or discriminate. It's just that we have never seen this thing before. And so in showing care and trying to love us, you know, there was the not accepting and kind of, you know, you see stigmatization across different places, whether it's you're taking your child to school and the school is not accepting the child because somehow they don't want it to spread and they don't want to lose clientele because you know, a child with disability is coming to that school. So it's something that is there. It's not even osh. It's like a taboo when you give birth to a child with disability, or somehow later in life you start seeing that people that have acquired disabilities do not even want to go out because they are wondering how people will perceive them now that they have the disability. And I think also sometimes it's the way they used to perceive people when before they had that disability. So it's still there. There's a lot of work that is going in with the law that is in place by the government. So now we're just at the implementation phase and really seeing how we can make sure that this law that is now in place gets implemented. People are aware, knowing exactly what to do, knowing that persons with disabilities don't want to be discriminated against, but just accepted and supported. And so there's so much that still needs to happen within that space.
And with your foundation, what are the things that I saw that you have 3 things that you do? You educate, you empower, and what's the third one?
We encourage and then we engage. So we have a 4E now, which is basically policy driven, because we're doing a lot of advocacies now with government, with different stakeholders, and seeing how we can actually fix behavioral change. You just talked about education, which is really critical to ensuring that as a people we can be more accepting of persons with disability.
Yes, and I think even the first step to it is actually acceptance that these things do happen.
Absolutely.
You know, if you live abroad, I lived abroad for many years, and you go, you'll have, you know, a toilet, you'll see a disabled toilet, you'll see, you know, there's a ramp for disabled people. So it's actually accepting that it's part of life, it's going to happen. So it's really great that you are that education is so key. So we'll take a quick break right now. We'll come back and continue this inspiring conversation with Crystal.
Champions of change. Paying it forward. Join us and be part of the movement.
Do you feel terrified when speaking before a group? Are you stressed when asked to present? Do you forget your points? Are you shy and need confidence? How do you give a speech with polish? Learn how at the School of Eloquence,
the home of public speaking. Attend our 2-day practical training in public speaking. Call 0802-303-2066 or log on to schoolofeloquence.org.
School of Eloquence, teaching the world to speak.
Champions of change. Paying it forward. Join us and be part of the movement.
Welcome back to Champions of Change. We've been talking to Crystal about the IREDE Foundation and the wonderful work they do with helping children who have limb challenges. So Crystal, I wanted to ask you, in terms of, you've helped numerous families, children with limbs, prosthetic limbs. What has been a memorable story? I'm sure you have many. Can you think of a couple of memorable stories that you have seen a change? Because presumably when you help the child, you're not just helping them with the limb, but you're helping the whole family in terms of mindset as well, I'm sure.
I think every story is unique
Right.
and really inspiring on its own. But I'm reminded of one specifically where we worked with a girl. Her name is Debbie. And Debbie, at the time we met her, was living with her aunt. And she would walk about 2 hours to school.
Wow.
And 2 hours back. And she lived in a part of Nigeria where the terrain is very rough. So when it rains, sometimes Debbie will fall into the mud, basically not be able to go back to school again. So the shame makes her go back home. And so she missed a lot of school days.
Wow.
And so we were able to give Debbie a prosthetic limb. First thing that happened was Debbie's travel time reduced by almost 45 minutes. Because now she could walk. But we didn't stop at that. What we then did was to work with the community to get her a bike person, like an auto rickshaw, that would take her to school and bring her back home. Initially, when we started with Debbie, Debbie's result was less than 30%. She was doing very poorly at school. But immediately she could get transportation to school, walk to school, not miss any school days. She actually did finish her WAEC, clearing all her results, and now she's a nurse.
Wow.
And so when I look at that kind of life, it just tells you of what could have become. It's not just Debbie, it's her aunt now empowered. It's that nobody has to think about her. She can live life to the fullest. Or when you think of Kelechi is a double amputee, and the impact story that trips me more about Kelechi is not even because she now has 2 limbs and she can walk, but it's of her dad. And the dad really talking about the impact. And usually fathers are not the ones that show up. You see a lot of mothers coming around and showing up. And Kelechi's dad talking about the fact that now he can go to work, he can relate with the child, he can now stand in his community and have the pride that now my child walks, is something that's just really very touching. And every time you look at each of the stories, whether it's Kelechi, whether it's Debbie, whether it's Miracle, or any of the kids that we have worked with, you just really see the impact, not just with them, but with their community. Because their friends can now play with them without thinking, what am I going to do? And just bringing it to my own case, immediately my daughter got her prosthetic limb. I could now go out. I could go for events. You're no longer just thinking, how will I carry this child? People asking me questions, because she could now walk on her own. And today, she's in boarding school outside of the state where we live. So that's really something that is only possible because she's now been empowered to live life to the fullest. And that's like the story of every child that you see at the IREDE Foundation.
That's amazing, because also you empower them, which in turn gives them confidence.
Absolutely.
And they feel like they're like everybody else.
Absolutely.
So that stigma is removed from them.
It's reduced.
Yes, reduced.
Yeah.
Reduced. That's fantastic. So I wanted to also ask you about, you're a grief recovery specialist.
Yes, I am.
It sounds a big word. Can you explain that to us? And how does that feed into the work you do? And also, what are the common threads that you have seen in terms of being a grief recovery specialist with the families that you help? What are some of the common threads and nuances that you see in doing this work?
I mean, it's interesting because, when IREDE started, I just really wanted to help people. And then at some point, I used to say, I help people recover from, and I really didn't know it was grief recovery. I didn't even think I was going through grief by giving birth to a child that had a congenital deformity and then the amputation and all the losses. So grief recovery basically talks about being able to manage all the losses that you go through. So sometimes, most times, people think of loss just in terms of the death of a loved one. But losses are a lot, from divorce to financial loss to faith loss to, like in my own case, my daughter's leg having to be amputated is a loss because you used to have something and then you lost it. And basically, having the skills and being able to work with parents at the foundation, one of the pillars of what we do is what we call encourage. And that's basically where the counseling and the therapy comes in for parents, because just imagine giving birth to a child with a congenital deformity. Or even you had your child, the child had 2 limbs, then an accident happens. And then all of a sudden, the child that was already walking before can no longer walk. The pain for the child, for the parent, is a whole lot. So that process usually just helps for people to be able to go through and recover. One of the key things that I've seen, and I've seen a lot of parents, at the foundation and also working with people in grief, is saying things like time will heal the situation. And this is interesting because for everyone that knows me, I tell people time does nothing. Right. If you don't do something about that healing process, that will ensure that you come out, living life, even with that loss that you have, then you definitely will realize that that thing will still be there. Right. It's like when you have a flat tire. You don't leave the tire and just say, with time, this tire is going to get fixed and then the car is going to move. If you don't change the tire, if you don't get a vulcanizer, if you don't go buy new tires, nothing is going to happen. Your car is just going to be there because the tire is bad. And that's exactly the same thing that you have with grief. So usually when parents have gone through this and a lot of people are telling you time will heal the situation, don't worry, you're going to be fine. People are not fine until they do something with it. And sometimes that something, in the case of IREDE Foundation, might be get a prosthetic limb, might be join the support group, might be, get your child to go to school, get a mental health support for the child, for the parent, because those are the things or the actions that you take that helps you heal through the process of the grief. Because by the time the child now has the prosthetic limb, it's not the same as the other leg or, what a regular leg would have looked like, but the child can move around. So it reduces your pain and you can see hope in that situation versus just really thinking that I'm in such a mess. So really, the grief recovery helps me to be able to engage with the parents when I'm doing the social support that we provide for them at the foundation.
Brilliant. So what I understand by what you just said is that, you encourage the families to be intentional.
Absolutely.
About their recovery, their stages of recovery.
Absolutely.
And intentionality will lead to that.
Absolutely.
Which is great. Fantastic.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure you've learned a lot of lessons over the years. So for people who are in the space of social impact and trying to create sustainable change in their sphere of influence, particularly around disability, what are some of the key lessons that you've learned that you could share with someone who's thinking, how do I make a difference? And not to get into a mindset of being stuck in a rut. What are some of the key lessons you can share?
I think especially for people with disabilities, the first thing, or if you're working within that space, is knowing that everything is possible. Disability is a mind game. And I say it a lot of times because usually when you think disability, there's always a block. And you're thinking of what the person cannot do. But there are a lot of things that people with disabilities can do. So you focus on the things that they can do. If you're also thinking of social impact and all of that, I would want to say, don't think of all of the impacts that you can achieve. Just think of one thing that you can do. By focusing on the one thing that you feel like you want to work on, you're going to have like offshoots and things that you continue, because you can get very frustrated. If you say, for instance, I want to work with children with disabilities, there are different kind of disabilities, and you need to be able to focus and major on one thing. So for instance, at the IREDE Foundation, we work majorly with children that have been amputated. Some other people work with children with cerebral palsy, work with kids with autism, and you have different areas where people have decided to specialize, but just specializing on that particular one helps you to unfold or peel the onion and understand better how to help this. And I think that's one of the things that can help people that are getting into the social impact space. So you can almost touch and feel your impact work, because it's concentrated versus just spreading across and trying to do everything.
That's great. That's great. So how can people get involved in terms of mentoring or even contributing to the cause? I'd like you to look into the camera and just talk about how people can get involved or donate.
Thank you so much. There are different ways to actually work with IREDE Foundation and give, of your substance, your talent, or your time. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the fact that you can volunteer your time. We need every day people that are skilled, that can work with us to be able to achieve the kind of impact. So from whether you're a lawyer, to being a doctor, to being an admin person, HR expert, whatever expertise you have, you can be a volunteer for us at the IREDE Foundation. And that volunteerism also links to our Out on a Limb program, which happens every year, where we need lead advocates, as we call them, to work for us as ambassadors across different locations in the world. So you can be anywhere in the world volunteering for the cause that we do. The second thing is you can also volunteer your treasure. You can give us your money. Limbs actually cost a lot, and so it's critical that we're able to deliver those limbs. So when you're working with giving a limb, it's like an average of $2,000, but we do crowdfund and bring all the funds together. So nothing is too small to give for us to be able to give a limb to a child. And then also, you can help refer a child. We do not know all the children that need the support that we give. So just referring a child to the IREDE Foundation is very helpful to helping us deliver our mission and our project. And for you to do this, just go to our website. It's www.theIREDE Foundation, spelled as THEIREDE Foundation, one word, .org, and our social media handles across all the platforms at the IREDE Foundation. So still IREDE Foundation, and you will get us there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Crystal. We will put all the information about the IREDE Foundation on our platform for anyone who wants to get involved. Thank you so much again. It's been a brilliant time with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Champions of change. Paying it forward. Join us and be part of the movement.
Eloquence focuses attention on the message and the audience.
I found it very interesting and exciting. Did you?
It was very beneficial.
Definitely would learn a lot, a whole lot.
Thank you. The delivery was second to none.
Speak with power.
Speak with power.
Speak with power.
I'd like to thank Crystal for joining us today and sharing her impactful and inspiring story with us. We hope her story has motivated you to make a difference. Stay tuned to the Achievement Channel for more stories of individuals making a positive impact. I'm your host, Pamela Chigbu. Till next time, bye for now.